Michael, James Cameron has done it again.
Really?
He's done it once again. Avatar, The Way of the Water, earns $63.4 million in the film's third weekend domestically, in the United States, that means, which is a what % drop from its second weekend, Michael?
It's I assume, very small % drop.
Yes.
It's a 2% drop.
How about a 0% drop?
Oh, okay. I was wondering if it was going to be that. Yeah, okay. Wow, very impressive.
Exactly the same amount. I mean, that is crazy. James Cameron, man, just never bet against him. Avatar, The Way of the Water, he said it had to make $2 billion to basically make back its budget. I didn't think it was going to make that. I thought 1.5 billion would be where it settled at. But now I think it's got a good chance of getting over that $2 billion mark. So yeah, the man is a movie god. What else can you say?
Anyway, let's talk about Casablanca.
Let's talk about the original Avatar, Casablanca.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches, and we evaluate them on first impressions, beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are celebrating the... Wait a minute. It's not an anniversary of Casablanca. That was released in 1942 and it's 2023. Hold on a minute. We're celebrating the 79th anniversary. Oh, no, sorry, the 81st. Oh, God, I can't even get it right even when I read. We're celebrating the 81st year anniversary of Casablanca. That's a bit of a weird anniversary to be celebrating. Anyway, Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Casablanca?
Well, if you remember, Michael, what we do around this time of year to kick off our Oscar season.
Oh, yeah, as we look at films that have won the Best Picture previously.
And this won Best Picture in 1943.
Ah, yeah, of course. It all makes sense now.
And although it was released in 1942 initially, it was actually released nationwide in 1943.
Ah.
So it is actually its 80th year anniversary for its nationwide release in the United States. So there you go. Casablanca, Michael. Casablanca is the cultural and economic capital of Morocco.
Yes.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, I'm on the wrong Wikipedia page.
Oh, no.
Here.
It would be really embarrassing if you were accidentally reading the Wikipedia article for the city itself.
Yeah, no.
That would be cringe.
And it would be really embarrassing if I just watched a documentary on Casablanca.
Yeah.
As well. Yeah. No, of course, I don't think that exists, unfortunately. That would be cool. Just a documentary on like Casablanca in general, like what it's got going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like maybe there is a documentary about the process of trying to secure visas to exit via Casablanca in World War II. I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe there was. Yeah. Also, Casablanca, doesn't that just mean White House? I believe in Spanish.
Oh, yeah. I would assume it would, because obviously casa is house.
Yeah,
and
you don't need to
Blanca
explain it, Michael.
Yeah. You're right. Well done, Luke.
The thing is, I don't know if that has any meaning or not. It probably does, but I didn't look that up. I didn't find that out on the Casablanca Wikipedia page, which, I'm sure anyone could if they looked. Anyways, so Casablanca is a 1942 American romantic drama film directed by Michael Curtis and starring Humphrey Bogart. Actually, at first I'll tell you who the screenplay was by. This is how you know it's going to be a good movie. The screenplay was by Julius J. Epstein and Philip J. Epstein. And also Howard Koch.
Those are some funny names right there.
Oh, wait a minute. Who's blacklisted by the Hollywood film studio bosses in the 1950s. Wow.
Oh, sounds pretty woke.
Koch wrote the screenplay to Mission to Moscow in 1943, or Moscow. The movie subsequently spawned controversy because of its positive portrayal of Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Union. Well, it was during the war, of course. After the war, Koch was dismissed after he was denounced as a communist. Wow, that sounds a bit like cancel culture there. Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought cancel culture didn't exist back then. No,
it only started existing in the last few years to, blacklist or shadow ban conservatives, on Twitter. It's just crazy how, and all this talk about free speech and that they used to just ban people for creating a movie where a character, Joseph Stalin, was portrayed positively while he was on the side of the Americans during the Second World War. Like he was an ally of them.
Yeah.
No, still too far. He moved to the UK, by the way, a bastion of free speech after.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we are woke. but in like a good way.
But the thing is, it was actually based on Everybody Comes to Rick's by Murray Bennett. Oh, no, sorry, Murray Burnett and Joan Allison, which was a play. So Casablanca.
I could see this being a play.
Yes, it is very. I knew it before I watched the film, and you could easily see how this was a play. Of course, it all takes place in Rick's bar. That's where everything takes place in. There's like a couple of other scenes where things take place. Not in Rick's bar, but yeah, that's obviously the central place. The movie stars Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, Paul Henreid, Claude Rains, Conrad Veidt, Sidney Greenstreet, and Peter Law. The movie was released on November the 26th, 1942 in the Hollywood Theatre, but of course it was released January the 23rd, 1943 in the United States, so technically you could argue it's its 80-year anniversary this year. Casablanca. And Michael, can you guess what the budget was for Casablanca?
This might be completely ridiculous. Was it 2 million?
Okay, you know what? You're close. Actually, you're not close. Well, okay. I mean, it's 800,000 to 1 million.
Okay, so I'm almost close.
Yeah. No, I meant you're close in terms of going over.
Yeah.
More than double. But you're not going to get a mark for that. I've decided. I'm going to be charitable, considering it's the last one of the year technically, even though it's 2023. Anyway, box office, Michael. How much did this make?
Well, you said this was the original. Oh wait, actually, I just realized there's another reason you might be saying this is the original Avatar. But I think probably this film was a big success because obviously it's still famous now. I don't think there's any reason why this film wouldn't have appealed to contemporary audiences. So I think this film was a big success. I would imagine this film was easily the highest grossing film of the year, and I would guess it was the highest grossing film by some margin. The question is, what would that translate to in terms of money? I think this film made 12 million.
Wow, you almost went double. Almost. Crazy.
Oh, that's good that I saved myself.
Yeah, so it was 3.7 to 6.9. I'm going to be charitable, 6.9, so you didn't go double.
3.7 to 6.9, that's very variable.
I assume on re-releases perhaps, although I do not know, but you're right, that is a big gap.
That's like almost double.
Yeah, it is almost double. You're right. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, obviously you do forget that, at the time this movie came out, a big market did not have access to the movie.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Which was Europe.
Yes.
So yeah, this was only available in the
because
United
of cancel
States.
culture.
Yeah, because of cancel culture. The United States, Canada, and I don't know, other places in the world, presumably. Canada was in the war because they were part of the Commonwealth still, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, the box office, a decent amount for the day, but yeah, not quite the heights you guessed.
Yeah.
So that concludes us looking at the budget and box office for 2022, even though we're in 2023, but just forget about that. You guessed more than double or less than half the box office total 17 times.
Okay.
And more than double or less than half than the budget, only 12 times. Also, you said you thought this Casablanca might have been the Avatar of its day for another reason. What was that?
Well, okay, so I suppose I'll say this right away. I wasn't going to compare this film to Avatar, but I was going to compare this film to Titanic. And I know that people have compared Titanic to Avatar. So basically what I was thinking was this film is like a romance set in the midst of a kind of humanitarian tragedy. So for me, like I was thinking this film was a bit like Titanic, obviously in that it's set in a historical moment. Obviously at the time it wasn't set in a historical moment because it was contemporary, but the Titanic was set on the Titanic, and it was like a time where like the whole thing was like it was a microcosm of society, but also there was this romance happening in the background. And this film is a little bit like that. You've got Casablanca, it's like a mini little society unto itself. You've got this humanitarian tragedy of World War II happening, and then you've got this romance happening at the same time. And I was thinking in that sense you could say it's a little bit similar to Avatar, not really, but like because of the fact there's also this element of let's put a romance in a humanitarian tragedy. It's
also I think similar to Avatar because Laszlo reminds me of Jake Sully. I don't know if you got that vibe.
Like when he's in his weird Avatar state, I don't know, I feel like he looks more like weedy than Jake Sully.
I don't actually think that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just to clear up.
I see. You gooster.
Yeah, I really got you there, didn't I? But anyway, Michael, I guess you've explained why this movie is being compared to the Titanic, and I can't remember whether you said you liked Titanic or not. I think you thought it was okay. So did you find Casablanca okay?
I liked this film. I would say that it was better than okay. I think like basically my general take, like most of my takes are positive which would be that I think setting it during this kind of time period, obviously the time period of when it was filmed, but like the fact that it happened to be during World War II adds that kind of level of intrigue. The romance is kind of fine, and overall, yeah, I also like the fact that it's not too kind of cliche, like it doesn't just have.
Oh, it's not cliche.
Well, it doesn't have like, I guess what I'm talking about is the fact like it has the kind of bittersweet ending, which is I think preferable to having an ending that's like, for example, The Simpsons alternative ending, which famously features her parachuting down and then they get married, which of course is supposed to be like, because that's what the audiences want. They want like a happy ending, not a bittersweet ending. It's kind of cool that they went for a bittersweet ending instead. And I guess the only negative really is, I think, like, as a romance film, like, I mean, I think a lot of romance films are just kind of generic. Like, it's like, oh, there's just two people in love. And it is just that. But overall, I would say I liked it.
You have a lot of Hollywood films back in the golden age of Hollywood, which were, I guess, love films. This is a bit different to most of them, I guess. Look, I can understand why this is popular. It seems to be, of the Hollywood golden age, the most Hollywood golden age movie you could possibly imagine. What I do like is it's set in World War II, and literally it came out in World War II, which, again, it's crazy to imagine. People were watching this movie, a love story, while war was going on, in Europe and in the Pacific, and people didn't know who was going to win the war, and it's kind of crazy that was happening. But I find that interesting. I agree with a quote from one of the Epsteins, when
one of the Epsteins,
not Jeffrey. It's his dad, Julius. I assume they're related.
Yes.
Where he said, Julius Epstein later noted the screenplay contained more corn than in the states of Kansas and Iowa combined.
Oh, I like to imagine he said it like an old timey like movie, like, hey, this has got more corn than a. Well,
he probably didn't sound like that, did he? Giving
I think this has more.
All right. Yeah, but when he also added, but when corn works, there's nothing better. And you know what? That's true. And again, I think it's a very good movie in terms of the Hollywood golden age. Because I've seen a few Hollywood golden age movies. This one definitely, it's got a good script. It's got some witty dialogue. The dialogue's very witty. Everyone's got a great comeback and a great line.
Yeah. What I'm interested in, actually, because I know you like a good kind of character. I know you like your like main characters in their situations. And this is actually something I forgot to mention. Obviously, there's kind of this aspect of like the main kind of actual central thing is Rick gonna stop being such a Don noir only cares about himself guy, and actually reveal himself to be, to stand up for the cause.
We'll get into it. He doesn't reveal himself because throughout the movie we showed that he's actually not as cynical as he portrays. So
I was kind of thinking that.
Yeah. So it's not that surprising when we find out he does the right thing again, which is why I said it was predictable. It's not really a character study or character arc. It's like, oh yeah, this guy is an archetype of a character, and we see in the end, he does what I was expecting him to do. Having not watched it for the first time, I was like, oh yeah, he's going to let those two go, because I there was also something in the back of my mind saying, oh yeah, this is a tragedy, or it's a tragedy in the sense that he doesn't end up with her, because
like it's not going to end with a happy ending.
Yeah, because I know that about Casablanca, and it fit with, again, throughout the movie he's doing generous things because he's a cynical guy. But
yes, he saves that woman from having to do sexual favors to that French guy.
Yeah, to Renault. Yeah. So yeah, again, it's clear what's going to happen. Anyway, so let's get into the plot. So, actually, nitpicks first, Michael. Do you have any?
I've only got one lit pick.
Okay, I'll go first with my nitpick. The Germans don't sound German enough.
That's actually a good point.
And the French guy doesn't sound French enough.
Yeah,
Like,
the French guy sounds basically English.
Yeah, you can tell he's got a little bit of a French accent,
Yeah.
like the tiniest, like 10%. It's like you need to up that to about 50%.
Yeah,
I mean,
sacre bleu! I wanted
Yeah.
to get my cock sucked by that lady who needs a visa.
that Bulgarian lady, she shall suck my cock. And, you
And the
know,
German guy's like, Ivan, why
Yeah.
did you make it so that he can't have any of the sex with the woman?
yeah, that's a good impression of Schmidt, whatever he's called. No, Strasser. You know. Anyway,
You are starting to stress me out.
okay. So, what's your lit pick?
My lit pick is the way they make fun of the Italians throughout this film, because obviously the Italians get memed on retrospectively for their performance in World War II, because they were so hilariously bad. And I like the fact that even at the time they were getting memed on. I think there's like two things. There's like a line, and this happened later on, so I didn't write it down directly, but he says that something like, if it was like some kind of like very minor thing, and it was like, oh, the Italians would declare that to be a major victory or something like that. But the other thing is, right at the beginning, when I think it's Strasser just completely ignores the Italian, like he like lands, he's like, Ivan, my name is Strasser, his very thick German accent, and then this other guy walks up like, Italy would like to help you with everything you got going on, and then the guy just ignores him. I don't know if you call that, but yeah, I just find it funny that like the whole meme of just Italy being like so incompetent during World War II is very funny to me, and I'm glad that they were making fun of it even at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Italians really took a big old L in World War II.
I can't believe they used to be Rome.
Let's get into the plot of Casablanca. So, a cynical American expatriate or patriot, however you say it, meets a former lover with unforeseen complications. Filmed and set during World War II, it focuses on an American expatriate, Bogart, who must choose between his love for a woman or helping her husband, a Czech resistance leader who escaped from Vichy-controlled city of Casablanca to continue his fight against the Germans. The screenplay is based on Everybody Comes to Rick's, an unproduced stage play by Murray Burnett and Joan Allison. Casablanca was rushed into release to take advantage of the publicity from the Allied invasion of North Africa
That's very cynical.
I know, a few weeks earlier. Hey, look, you got to make money in this town. And, that's how you do it. But that's the thing, I find that fascinating that, history was happening, and then this movie comes out, which of course has stood the test of time and is still incredibly popular to this day.
Yeah.
It came out during World War II when, the Allies were invading like Casablanca.
Yeah, because I kept accidentally misspeaking when I was talking about like the intrigue aspects, and I kept making it sound. I think like several times in this review so far, I've made it sound as if this film was like set in World War II, which obviously implies that like they consciously were like, oh, let's set it during World War II. But of course, the reason why is because that's what you would usually get. Like it's very rare to see a movie just set like the fact that it was such a major war and they were already like, boom, we're on it. We're gonna make a film about it.
We're going to make a film about it, yeah. And obviously, I think that definitely drove interest in the movie. Clearly it would. It was relevant, a relevant plot for the day, basically. And so that, it's naturally interesting because of the historical aspect. Well, I find that to be the case anyway. And of course, there's a lot of corn, there's a lot of schmaltz in it. It's a lot of good old-timey Hollywood stuff. I will say the plot is pretty watertight, which is good. There are no like plot holes, which I appreciate, and I think that's one of the reasons why maybe it's not one of the reasons why it's held up all this time, but certainly for me, I enjoyed that. I was like, right, I can get invested in this movie because of the fact that it all makes sense, and that helps with me. I like it when movies make sense because clearly whoever's written the screenplay has taken the time to actually care about what would happen in this scenario, and that was the case here. So. Yeah, like a lot of modern movies could honestly learn from Casablanca in that regard.
Because I mean, see, the thing is, I've seen this film before, not so long ago actually. I think a while ago I tried to catch up on some of the like old Oscar-winning films, just so I could expand my horizons. And so I had seen this film before, but when I was watching it, obviously for us reviewing it now, I was like, I don't really remember what happened that well, and I was kind of a bit worried that the implication of that would, that would be because the film was maybe a bit unwieldy, and that's why I hadn't really remembered it. But no, when I was watching it this time, I was like, no, actually, this plot is it's simple, it's intuitive. You can quite easily work out like everything that's going on with all the different characters, what the different dimensions are in play. Yeah, it's pretty easy to work out, which is good.
Yeah, because obviously there's politics going on. Because
Yeah.
you've got the Germans, you've got the French, you've got Bogart, you've got Laszlo. Kind of four different areas, I guess, of, well, four different areas of motivation. They all have their own interests. And so, you're dealing with four different elements there. And of course, you have Ilsa in the middle of it somewhat. So do have to be, you do have to write a pretty good script and take care to make sure everything does make sense, and they do. So yeah, congrats to them for that. So anyway, maybe at the end I have a bit of an issue with what happens at the end with Renault. But anyway, let's move on. So the original play was inspired by a trip to Europe made by Murray Burnett and his wife in 1938, during which they visited Vienna shortly after Anschluss and were affected by the anti-Semitism they saw. Of course, hey, they produced a really good movie for the time, and it's still a decent movie, I think. In
yes, there are worse races that could be in charge of things.
What a statement. Honestly, yeah. Yes. I mean, for one thing, the Aryans, I mean...
Yeah, they did a pretty bad... I'm just going to say, the Aryans were, in charge of Germany for just, a few years, and they completely destroyed it.
Hey, and you know what? I would rather have the Jews control Germany than the Aryans, I'm telling you right now. Yeah. I'm telling you, I mean, look... look
the only country I don't like the Jews controlling is Israel. They can control every other country. It's just Israel is the only country where they've done a bad job.
Yeah, no. Obviously...
They were also the victim of a massive genocide, which also probably wouldn't have happened. I don't want to be too speculative, but I imagine it wouldn't have happened if they were in charge of everything.
Yeah, I would say that.
Unless you want to go down the Kanye West route of when he said slavery was a choice.
Okay, yeah. Did never go down the Kanye West route.
Yes.
I think that's fair to say. Anyway, in the south of France, Burnett and his wife went to a nightclub that had a multinational clientele, among them many exiles and refugees, and the prototype of Sam. In The Guardian, Paul Fairclough wrote that Cinema Vox in Tangier was Africa's biggest when it opened in 1935 with 2,000 seats and a retractable roof. Wow. As Tangier was in Spanish territory, the theatre's wartime bar heaved with spies, refugees and underworld hoods, securing its place in cinematic history as the inspiration for Rick's Cafe in Casablanca. In the play, the Ilsa character is an American named Lois Meredith. She does not meet Laszlo until after her relationship with Rick in Paris has ended. Rick is a lawyer. The play, set entirely in the cafe, ends with Rick sending Lois and Laszlo to the airport. To make Rick's motivation more believable, Wallace, Curtis and the screenwriters decided to set the film before the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. So Rick is just, an American who doesn't have any skin in the game.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's set in December 1941, and I think the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in the same month.
Yeah, hold on. They attacked them specifically in December 7th, 1941, so there's not a very long gap. It must have been very early in December.
Yeah, so this must be 2 days later, just Rick's looking at his paper and he's like, the Japs did what?
Yeah, he's like, oh man, I'm glad I had that change of heart.
Glad I helped fucking Laszlo and his, what you call it?
See, Toots, I'm glad that really worked out for us.
Yeah, well, thank God. I would have been a traitor to my country. Jesus Christ, yeah. Now, that's the thing. I'm surprised they could have done it, because it says here, it's to start off in the script on Wikipedia, in December 1941, American expatriate Rick Blaine owns a nightclub and gambling den in Casablanca. So, yeah, it was literally a few days later, probably. The Japanese blew up Pearl Harbor. So, yeah, I don't know. They really cut it close there, did these screenwriters? Yes, they really did. They didn't need to do that. But anyway, I think it obviously, it's an interesting place to set a movie, clearly, and which we'll get into now, actually. So the cafe is called Rick's Cafe American. Not very subtle, is it?
No, yes. It's very...
Yeah, just following an American tradition of just not overcomplicating words or names for names for things, yes. It attracts a varied clientele, including Vichy French and Nazi German officials. What's the difference, eh? Refugees are desperate to reach the neutral United States and those who prey on them. Although Rick professes to be neutral in all matters, again, that's why they needed to set it before Pearl Harbor, he ran guns to Ethiopia during the Second Italo-Ethiopian War, and fought on the Republican side in the Spanish Civil War against the fascists, of course. Despite feigning indifference, he demonstrates sympathy for the refugees' plight and disdain for the repressive fascist regimes. So, again, just as a place to set a movie, it's an incredibly interesting place.
Yeah.
All these people in this place, in this interesting time in history, when nobody there, or making the movie had any knowledge of the Holocaust. So
Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
yeah, no, I feel like that's the thing. You set this movie and all romantic. Well, I don't know how many more movies were set during World War II that were filmed during World War II. But all this kind of has a light tone, and the Nazis aren't treated as just despicable evil people.
Yeah, I was like, that is an interesting thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're treated as the bad guys, but they're not treated as like the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I wonder if people had known about what horrors they were committing, they would have upped the evilness of the Nazis.
Yeah.
But again, I think it does make it more realistic how they were, because at the end of the day, this guy Strasser, he's at the end of the day, these guys were bureaucrats, weren't they?
Yeah.
They weren't like, he's not, he's in fucking Casablanca. He's not on the Eastern Front, is he?
No,
So,
yeah. He's not like leading the SS. And like, that's the thing, because like, obviously they aren't. I think like, it's almost confusing because of the fact that like, I say confused, it's not to me, but like, it's so, the fact that the Nazis are like so chill, because they're kind of, they're just like, they're like a threat, but they're not, completely,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Able to destroy everything.
The thing is, I think that's probably more realistic.
I think it works.
Given their reputation after the Second World War of the ultimate evil, again, if this movie hadn't been made during the Second World War, they would have perhaps been more evil. But
yes.
Again, I just think in terms of Casablanca, Rick's Cafe, it's just fascinating to imagine a place like this existed. And of course, it did exist in Tangier, apparently. But yeah, Casablanca, it's what an interesting time in history. And that's the thing. I do think, forgetting the horrors of the Holocaust, of course, which, are pretty damn bad.
Pretty hard to forget.
Yeah, the worst atrocities in human history. World War II, these kind of stories are interesting, just to know all the politics going on, in places like this. I don't know. I'm guessing you agree?
Yeah. I do agree. Like, obviously, and I think, specifically, like, the aspect of, like, France, obviously, was an interesting place to choose because, obviously, or I suppose, actually, to be fair, any of the kind of allies of Nazi Germany who were kind of reluctant. Like, I think actually another interesting thing is that Romania is the only country, I think I'm right in saying this, the only country that came out of World War II with more territory than it had going into it. Or rather, sorry, the only country on the Axis side that came out. And the reason why is because Romania was like really reluctant in terms of like allying with Nazi Germany, but they basically didn't have a choice. And actually also the other thing is Bulgaria like refused to send any Jews to because they were also allied. So like the thing is like obviously you have, because Nazi Germany was pretty crazy, quite a few countries that were like allies with Nazi Germany but didn't really like them. So I think
so the Nazi Germany wanted Bulgaria to send them their Jews.
Yeah, so that they could
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, they're not even in their occupied territories.
Yeah.
Wow, they really didn't like the Jews. I mean, obviously that was obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically like so obviously with that kind of the geopolitics involved there. I mean, I suppose you've got a similar thing with Schindler's List of like people being under Nazi, like power, but their own personal priorities conflict with the the desires of the Nazi party. And I think that creates like an interesting situation because obviously they have to kind of work subtly, and that's obviously what you get with Renault, for example.
Yeah, and of course we are going to review Schindler's List from a year from now, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, again, I think the Nazis are portrayed more evilly in that. Would you say? That would be fair, right? Yeah. And again, because it's set post World War II, and again, it's not in nice sunny Casablanca as well. And I think audiences as well are more accepting of that compared to. Well, I guess audiences didn't know how bad the Nazis were, again, as we discussed. They didn't know at the time. Anyway, so Petty Crook Hugart boasts to Rick of letters of transit obtained by murdering 2 German couriers. The papers allow the bearers to travel freely around German-occupied Europe and to neutral Portugal. They are priceless to the refugees stranded in Casablanca. Hugart plans to sell them at the club and persuades Rick to hold them. I don't know, do you get, just like with these papers, I mean, obviously I know it came after, but do you get like Star Wars Mos Eisley vibes? I don't know, with Luke and Luke and what's he called? Obi-Wan, that's it. Trying to leave Tatooine, well, the fucking Empire.
Yeah, they got to find a way out of that. Yeah, that's a good. That's actually a good analogy for it.
Yeah, obviously
yes.
that movie came after this one. But yeah, I was thinking with that, with like, all these refugees, they're all trying to get out, and they're at, all these people hang out in Rick's club, all this seedy underworld. Yeah. Anyway, the unabashedly corrupt prefect of police, Ugot dies in custody without revealing that Rick has the letters. Yes, and again, it's a plot device, that explains why the papers exist, and also it gives a nice view into the world of Casablanca too. What this place is like. So again, that's why I like it. Again, it's a very watertight script, as we said, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah. Like it's a great kind of introduction. It is kind of crazy, this guy, because the thing is, the guy Ugarit, is that his name?
Ugarit, whatever. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Basically, he shows up, and he's kind of like he's quite a funny personality. You expect him to stick around for longer because obviously he's kind of played in this kind of like weird way. It's like he's kind of got a voice a bit like this, like it's kind of like a skeevy voice. But yeah, you kind of expect him to stick around for longer, so it's kind of funny that he dies when he does. But yeah, I think it's a good, like, it makes sense that he shows up. And obviously it kind of sets up the threat that he's been killed over these papers. So yeah, it's a good way of introducing the papers and introducing the threat associated with them.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we get into the reason for Rick's cynical nature, because Rick, he runs this bar, he's a cynical guy. He's very grumpy all the time, and we find out that his former lover, Ilsa Lund, we find out why he's that when she enters his establishment. Spotting Rick's friend and house pianist Sam, Ilsa asks him to play As Time Goes By. Rick storms. Yeah, great. Rick storms over, furious that Sam disobeyed his order never to perform that song again, and is stunned to see Ilsa. She is accompanied by her husband, Victor Laszlo, a renowned fugitive Czech resistance leader. The two need the letters to escape to America, as German Major Strasser has come to Casablanca to arrest Laszlo. And we see, of course, flashbacks to their time in Paris and the Germans, marching in. The thing is, okay, so let's talk about the relationship between Ilsa and Rick.
Yes.
Because the thing is, I was wondering whether they delay the reveal of, because of obviously they're ex-lovers, would they reveal what happened later on in the movie to make it more of a twist, to keep the intrigue going? Well, not really, because like 5 minutes after she walks in, they show the flashback. But anyway, so yeah, the thing is, I don't think while they're together in Paris, the thing is, you don't see them meet, which I think would be a very interesting way to, just a very good way to show how much they like each other, because we don't see them spend that much time together, and I do think the movie honestly could do a better job of showing us like why they're in love. And again, I think them meeting for the first time would be a key way to, or a very good way to show that. And yeah, I don't know. Do you think the movie shows them unabashedly in love? Because I'm like, they're kind of in love. It's not exactly La La Land,
Yes, that's a good analogy for it. Yeah, I would I'd agree. Like, it's an interesting thing because obviously they literally have a line. I can't think it is in this moment of like the flashback, where it's literally a line about how they don't really know anything about each other. Like, I don't like that. And I think you can be in love, I guess, and not really know too much about someone.
If you're like star-crossed lovers, like that kind of cliche. But it's like there's nothing. There needs to be more than them just like saying how much they like each other, and drinking champagne. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think, like, for me also, it's the fact that, as you kind of prefaced going, or kind of introduced us with, this is the reason why Rick is so jaded.
Yes.
And
so I think.
And I think that's the issue, because it's kind of like, at the end of the day, you look at this, it seems like she was just some hot piece, like maybe like you can imagine like a fling, and then the fling ended badly. But the fact that this has like caused him to completely, like, the fact that, I guess, because obviously, one of the things at the center of the issue, or one of the central issues of this film is like, does Rick really have a character arc? And the only way it can hinge is to be like, well, he is a good guy, but his sadness over this relationship having ended is causing him to be so jaded that he needs to meaningfully reform. And the issue with that is you can't really buy into that when it doesn't seem like a very substantial kind of breakup.
Yeah, the thing, it doesn't seem that substantial that he would just become depressed after in such a way. The thing is, what I was interested in thinking about is what makes Ilsa different to the other people that Rick has been within his life, and there's no, sense what that is, you know.
Yeah, although like the thing is, again, people say like, "Oh, she's really beautiful." Like that's something that people say at several points. But then like that makes him sound very shallow, which isn't a very good thing.
You could say because there's a war going on. So, you know, that old cliche that the romance means so much more because, you know, the war is happening, you know, like it just like Titanic, Michael, like you said.
Yes, I was exactly thinking.
Yeah, when there's a disaster going on, you know, it's like a humanitarian disaster. It's the romance just is that extra bit special. And, you know, again, it's the idea. I think that is why George Lucas wrote Attack of the Clones like he did.
Yes.
So, yeah, that trope, I don't think really is the best trope to just rely on. You need something more. And certainly that, again, Lucas relied on it too much, and it was very, very bad, that romance in Attack of the Clones. But yeah, again, you just got to show me a bit more, you know. And also there is a problematic age gap between them as well.
Yes, yeah, that's another thing which like you've got to be like, okay, it was a different time.
No, but the thing is, I checked, there's 16 years between them, which
Really?
isn't too bad.
Yeah, it's not ridiculous, but then I guess she's quite young.
She would have been, I think she was born in 1915, so she would have been like 26 or
okay, not terrible
27.
actually.
He would have been, about 43. But the thing is, he looks 43. Like he's got wrinkles, you know, Humphrey Bogart. He looks as old as he actually is, and I'm sure you could find Hollywood actors who, I mean, he gives a good performance, obviously. You know, he doesn't perform bad, but he's like, oh yeah, they one looks a lot older than the other.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's look at the quotes now, Michael, because this has got a lot of famous quotes. This movie does. So, what's your favorite? Is it of all the gin joints in all towns in all the world, she walks into mine?
Yes.
How about that? I mean, to be honest, I just think that quote is just basically lampshading the plot convenience.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a memorable quote, but it actually, you know, if you think about it, it actually shows a flaw in the movie. No, I'm kidding, of course.
Well, if you think about it, maybe the Force brought them together.
Yeah.
Just to keep the Star Wars comparisons going. Yeah, of course, the funny thing is that I know that's also in The Simpsons, just to reference, where Homer, obviously Bart moves out and then he becomes friends with Tony Hawk, and Bart says, "I just wish my dad could see me now," and Tony Hawk says he can, there's a webcam in the corner, and then it cuts to Homer on Tony Hawk's website and he's like, of all the sites on all the web, I had to log on to his, and then it plays that song. So I like that.
No more Simpsons reference.
No more. We've done. Yeah, the quote is filled. But
how about, let's just go through the other quotes.
Yeah.
Play it once again. Oh, sorry. Play it once, Sam, for old time's sake.
Yes. Does he ever say "play it again, Sam"?
So this line is actually one of the most misquoted from Casablanca.
Yes. Yeah,
so
okay, that makes sense.
Nowhere in the film does anyone ever say "play it again, Sam."
That's interesting, because I didn't. Yeah, obviously I just saw the film.
The thing is, I was waiting for that line throughout the whole movie, and I was like, "Wait, did I miss it? I must have missed it." But no, it didn't say it, so I was paying attention. Yeah.
Because I've heard so people reference it.
Yeah. Rick later says, "Play it, Sam," but he does not say "play it again, Sam." So yeah, again is not said, which is weird. Like, I don't know how you get that quote.
But it's a bit like how people think that Darth Vader said, "Luke, I am your father."
Yeah,
when he actually says, "No, I am your father."
That's more understandable though.
Yeah. I think it is. Yeah, because it's like
his name. There's again isn't said at all in these quotes.
Yeah.
So the next quote is, "Here's looking at you, kid."
Yes, that one is repeated so many times.
Yes, which I don't think is great because of the age gap. You know.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable.
It highlights the age gap, which, you know, you're kind of forgetting it. You're kind of like, oh, they're in love. And he goes, "Here's looking at you, kid." I was like, wait, how old is she again, Humphrey? No,
yeah, I mean, I'm still on team, like, you know, the Beatles are bad for making that song about she was just 17. Like, you know, I don't care that it was the olden days.
No, but the thing is, when Paul McCartney wrote that song, he was also 17.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, okay, that would make sense,
so it's okay. But
trust you from the Northwest defending the Beatles. I bet you'll defend John Lennon's wife beating too.
Bogart, by the way, ad-libbed that line. "He's looking at you, kid."
and then he really liked it.
He really liked it.
That's a weird one, because like saying that now makes you think, so why was it repeated so many times because he ad-libbed it once and the director really liked it, or did he just keep ad-libbing it?
Yes. Yes. There is other quotes which I don't think are that memorable.
Okay.
One of them is like, "The problems of three little people." What the fuck does that mean?
Oh yeah. It's like, does he say don't amount to a hill of beans? Is that
yes. I mean, again, it's not that good. Another famous one is, "We'll always have Paris," which I don't think is that great a line. He's just saying, it's not like witty or anything. It's just like, we'll always have, because that's the city they were together in, and we're in love. We'll always have Paris.
Well, that's, oh God, you know what? That's also from a popular animated sitcom I wouldn't mention.
And then at the end, of course, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And obviously, Rick and Renault are going to walk away together and have a gay homosexual relationship in Brazzaville. Which, yes, the Hollywood did not approve that sequel idea, unfortunately. So those are the quotes. I mean, I don't know if any movie can compare in terms of old memorable quotes, particularly from Hollywood's golden age, but this one does a very good job. This one has perhaps the most memorable quotes. Again, having not seen the movie, I knew like 5 of those quotes.
Yes,
so,
are we including the one that isn't actually a quote from the film?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, like, obviously, there are old films like Citizen Kane. Does Citizen Kane even have any, like, apart from Rosebud, which is just one word?
I was going to say Rosebud.
Yeah, apart from that, I don't think it has like any kind of quotes. Obviously, the only other thing I'm thinking is Gone with the Wind, which is the whole "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." Apart from that, I genuinely can't think of any other kind of like really famous. I mean, I suppose depending on how liberal you're being with the time frame, you could say 1960s Psycho. We all go a little mad sometimes, but yeah, I think definitely you're right.
Oh no, yeah, this
5,
one has to. Yeah. In terms of power rankings, you power rank the movie with the most memorable quotes. Casablanca has to be number 1. I'm sorry, I don't think anything compares.
Yeah, of all the quotes in all the movies, 5 of them had to be in this one.
Okay, so let's talk about Rick's character, Michael. So,
yes.
When Laszlo makes inquiries, Signor Ferrari, an underworld figure and Rick's friendly business rival, divulges his suspicion that Rick has the letters of transit. Laszlo returns to Rick's cafe later that night and tries to buy the letters. Rick refuses to sell, telling him to ask his wife why. Rick, before this, helped the Bulgarian girl, of course, Michael, get the money she needed so she wouldn't have to have sex with Renault. Or maybe it was just...
What a cockblock.
I know, right? Which I'll get onto later when Renault sides with him. But the thing is, wouldn't it be funny if, Bogart was insisting on what Renault wanted? He were to ask it, well, if it's just a quick cocksucking, then, that's okay. That's okay.
Like, get over it.
Yeah, get over it. But obviously, there you go. He's a complicated man, Michael, because, he says he doesn't stick his neck out for anyone, but he just lost $2,000, helping this Bulgarian girl who he's never met before. So he says to Laszlo he used to fight for the underdog, but he doesn't do that kind of stuff anymore. But there you go. It's a window into his character. He's maybe not the hard-shelled, cynical guy that he portrays, and maybe he is sentimental and kind-hearted, perhaps, but yeah, obviously, fucking obviously, yes.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a situation where the things that he does to show that he's sentimental are quite good, but like the problem is that he isn't sentimental, or that he has any resistance to being sentimental isn't sufficiently well established. So it's kind of like if, because I could believe that a guy who is not generally sentimental might still take pity on somebody who's about to whore herself out for visas. I could believe that. But the problem is that you have to actually show that he is doing this in spite of a general tendency towards kind of self-interested cynicism. And they don't really show that enough. Like, sure, there's a moment where he ignores the guy being taken off to be arrested, but it's not much.
Yeah, I mean, what can he do in that situation, really,
that's true,
as well? And again, he doesn't give the tickets to, the tickets to Ilsa, but he has a personal vendetta against her. Yeah, they should have had...
he's basically just an incel.
Well, we'll get onto that in a bit. We need a situation where he does just portray himself as cynical and cold-hearted, and where he is in a situation where he basically can help this person and doesn't. Like with Ugarte, he couldn't help him there, really, could he? So where he has the opportunity to stick his neck out for somebody and actually deliver for them and actually help them realistically, but he doesn't decide to do that. We don't see that apart from obviously Ilsa, and of course there's a reason why. Anyway, so Laszlo and Rick are interrupted when Strasser leads a group of German officers singing Die Wacht am Rhein.
Yes.
I don't know what that means. the water in the Rhine.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe something like that. Laszlo orders the house band to play La Mosse.
Da, 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 da.
Is that the French national anthem as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
We've seen the World Cup enough to know that.
Well, I don't watch the national anthems.
You commie.
Okay. No, that makes me an uber patriot. I only watch God Save the King.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I only watch that. When the band leader looks to Rick, the latter nods. Again, Rick, he nods. He's he's cynical, doesn't stick his neck out for anyone. Oh no, wait, he's doing the exact opposite yet again. And Laszlo leads the band in proud defiance. Patriotic fever grips the crowd and everyone joins in, drowning out the Germans. Fearing the spirit of Laszlo can inspire, Strasser demands that Renault close the club. And again, I love when Renault gets his winnings after saying he is shocked gambling goes on in the club.
Yes, that is funny.
Yeah, again, it's on the on the quotes. I'm shocked to find out gambling is going on.
Yes.
And then, you're winning, sir. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that is that's very good. That made me laugh. And sometimes this movie is kind of funny. That's the one moment where it made me laugh. So yeah, what do you think? Was it good?
No, yeah, I agree. Like I also thought that was a good joke, and it's like one of those jokes. I don't know, like sometimes a comedy in the past was not very funny because it was all blackface.
Okay.
But this is, this just goes to show that they didn't have an excuse, because when they tried to do actual comedy, they did a good job at it.
Yes. Again, Rick is willing to stick it to the Germans if it means, risking his bar, at least for, a week or so, however long it'd get shut down. Again, he's a dick, but he's got, a heart of gold underneath it all. What he reminds me of, Rick? That family guy, postal guy, who helps out at the children's hospital, or donated his whole, remember Peter?
Oh yeah, what was it?
Okay, I've got it. This is who Humphrey Bogart is in this movie.
What? Yeah, the new owners gave everyone raises. Even Kenneth, the badass mail clerk with the heart of gold. Hi, Kenneth. Hey, did I get any mail? No, but if you come any closer, I'll slice you. Okay. Man, what a badass.
Yeah? Well, that badass just gave half his paycheck to orphans. Orphans with diseases.
Wow. I tell you who he reminds me of. The alternative. I don't know if you remember, but in the movie Solo, there's a bit where pretty much this is the conversation. Woody Harrelson says, "I don't trust anybody," and then Han Solo's like, "What about your wife?" I can't remember what his wife is called. But what about your wife? You trusted her, and then he just turns around and says, "I don't trust anybody," and it's like really weird because it's just like some very obvious evidence has been presented that he does trust somebody, and he just like turns around and is like, it's just like, I don't, and like that's how I imagine Rick. He's like
yeah.
I don't stick my neck out for anybody. Like, what about? And then he just list off like a half dozen people he's stuck in there. And he's like, I don't stick my neck out for anybody.
Yeah, like what about the two people who you've stuck your neck out for just tonight?
What about the entire country of France? I don't stick my neck out for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, again, and Family Guy is parodying this kind of guy in media or TV and film. And so that is why I say Rick is kind of an archetype or a stereotype if you want to be harsh. And it's
Horrible.
not. And again, it's kind of predictable what he does at the end. And that's the thing. This movie is trying to create suspense about will Rick do the right thing or not, or hold his grudge against his former lover. But yeah, I think we know what's happening. So Ilsa confronts Rick in the deserted cafe. He says, I'm the only cause I'm interested in. Yeah, sure. And you mentioned Han Solo, actually. That is another good example. With him at the end of A New Hope coming back to save the day with fighting alongside Luke, when he said to Luke that he's just in it for the money and now he's leaving. Again, it's a similar kind of trope. Anyway, so Bogart is threatened with a gun, and then of course Ilsa confesses that she still loves him. She explains that when they met and fell in love in Paris, she believed her husband had been killed while attempting to escape a concentration camp. Rick's bitterness dissolves. And that's the thing, is that all it took, really, just an explanation, which, honestly, she could have made up. Yeah, like, it just feels like Rick was just playing this game, the tickets to get an explanation, rather than being properly hurt by his actions. And that's not, again, I think it should have taken more than that to convince him to help Ilsa and Laszlo. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. Like, I think, basically, he switches pretty easily. I think, I think it's related to the whole issue of having like his. I think like the smarter thing to do would have been, and I was actually thinking this would be the case, and I was kind of shocked it wasn't. Which is to have it so that instead of the way it is, which is basically his kind of bitterness hinges on the romance failing, if instead the romance failed because he was like only out for himself. So like I was thinking, and I can't really remember whether or not this would have made sense in terms of the way
I don't know if that would work, to be honest.
But like I was thinking like the way like, so let's say for example, I don't know, like she's like very idealistic, whereas he's kind of old, and like she falls in love with him, but then he's like, hey, Toots, this is the real world, and the reality is, you can't be trying to fight an idealistic cause or anything like that. And then she'd be like, oh, Rick, you're a bitter old man. I don't know, whatever. That was my theory.
Nah, I mean, you'd have to change like quite a lot of the movie then, wouldn't you?
Like you'd have to change a little bit.
No, because then Rick was always like this, basically.
Well, yeah. So you'd have to change like the whole thing about him running guns. The thing is, I think it could make sense if
not that you'd have to change. Like he's depressed because of this girl who betrayed him.
So he'd have to have always been depressed.
Yeah, essentially yes, and that again lessens the impact of their romance, basically. There.
Oh, actually, sorry, I want to say it annoys me that she falls in love with him so like readily. I don't know. I just
easily.
thought I can. Yeah, I don't know. Like I personally, like obviously the bittersweet ending's kind of cool with the film, but I kind of feel like it should have been a bit more bittersweet, and I feel like he probably should have accepted the fact that she didn't love him, because the way it is, basically, he gets that ego boost, which
When the police arrest Laszlo on trumped-up charges, Rick persuades Renault to release him by promising to set him up for a much more serious crime, possession of the letters. To allay Renault's suspicions, Rick explains that he and Ilsa will leave for America. And, again, there is some suspense. What will Rick do? Will he turn Laszlo in and escape with Ilsa? Will he let both Laszlo and Ilsa escape, or will he just let Laszlo escape and stay with Ilsa in Casablanca? Probably the middle one, because, again, we've seen too much of his character to presume otherwise. When the Renault tries to arrest Laszlo as arranged, Rick forces him at gunpoint to assist in their escape. At the last moment, Rick makes Ilsa board the plane to Lisbon with Laszlo, telling her that she would regret it if she stayed. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe.
Oh my god! Yeah, you didn't even mention that quote.
Yeah, this quote, which wasn't in the list of 10 most memorable quotes.
Yes, and that is that's. I literally referenced that obviously because I'd recently seen the film, but I referenced it to my sister. I don't know why. She was like, she wanted to do something like very kind of benign or like boring. Like it was like, I don't know. She like
sounds
asked
like your sister.
Yeah, she asked if she would like take a sausage. No, sorry. Sorry, I was trying to think. Okay, what I was thinking is like it was some kind of leftover cold meat. So I think it was actually. It was like a piece of ham or something like that. But like in my head, I thought like, oh, what's like a piece of leftover cold meat? Because she wanted to make a sandwich. So you want to make a sandwich with some cold meat. The fact it wasn't actually a sausage. I just anyway. And then I said, she was like, oh, do you think I should have this? I don't know if I should. And then I was like, because I'd recently seen this film, I was like, Ellie, if you don't have that sandwich, you'll regret it.
Rick says, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life, you will regret staying in Casablanca. Of course, he also says the Paris line, we'll always have Paris. Or was that her who said the line, we'll always have Paris? I can't remember, actually. Someone says, we'll always have Paris. That's, that's all that matters. And yeah, again, it's predictable what he does, like we've been saying throughout the review, or specifically me.
I think it was predictable, I suppose. I mean, I guess I'm wondering, like, to what extent, like, the bittersweet element of it was predictable. I think, well, I guess it was. Yeah, I think it was, because I think I think he had to kind of give up the love for the cause in order to. Yes. Yeah, so I suppose, basically you knew that it was going to end with him making some kind of sacrifice, sticking his neck out for somebody, even though he's never done that except for all the times in the film he's done that. Except for all the times in the very short period this film covers where he repeatedly does that.
Remember he says to the staff who work at his bar that he'll still pay them. Oh, yeah. Even though it's going to be shut down for maybe 2 weeks. I'm not sure. Yeah. So that's great. Anyway, he's anything but cynical. Anyway, so the possibility was discussed of Laszlo being killed in Casablanca, apparently, allowing Rick and Ilsa to leave together. But as Casey Robinson wrote to Wallace before filming began, the ending of the film set up for a swell twist when Rick sends her away on the plane.
Such old-timey language.
With Laszlo. Yeah, it wasn't really a twist, though. For now, in doing so, he is not just solving a love triangle. He is forcing the girl to live up to the idealism of her nature, forcing her to carry on with the work that in these days is far more important than the love of two little people. And I guess, because World War II was going on at the time, so this was, that was, again, a natural conclusion, of course, because if Rick was very selfish, while the Americans are fighting the Germans and the Japanese, I don't think that would have been as popular a move, would it? It was certainly impossible for Ilsa to leave Laszlo for Rick, as the motion picture production code forbade showing a woman leaving her husband for another man.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yes, the concern was not whether Ilsa would leave with Laszlo, but how the outcome would be engineered. According to Julius Epstein, he and Philip were driving when they simultaneously came up with the idea for Renault to order the roundup of the, quote, the usual suspects, which again is another famous quote apparently, but I don't know. Imagine if Laszlo got shafted. Laszlo is just the greatest guy in the world, isn't he? Like this Laszlo guy, you know. Imagine if he got cooked, Laszlo. You know, this fucking war hero. Would there be any justice in that?
Yeah, especially considering the fact that he would have been left for, he would be being left for another, his wife would have left him for another man. There we go, I finally got it out. That would have been totally unacceptable. But obviously, someone's a war hero. Like, you can't have it, so yeah. I mean, which is kind of actually why I think it was a bit weird that she even revealed herself to love him, because, again, like, to be honest, in a way, Laszlo's still kind of getting cucked, like, emotionally. I know that's a bit of a controversial take, but I genuinely feel like that has to be kind of recognized on some level. Yeah, like, imagine if, like,
he's getting cooked strategically, though.
Yeah, because, like, imagine if, like, you had some woman who you loved and she was, like, your wife or whatever, and then, like, you'd be like, oh, don't worry, you're still going to be in a relationship with her. She's still going to marry you. Yeah, but she's going to kiss and confess her love to another man, who's then going to basically have to force her to stay with you.
But he gets something out of it, though. So it's like in Glass Onion. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen it.
Dave Bautista's character makes his girlfriend sleep with Elon Musk, or the Elon Musk stand-in, so he can get on Alpha News, as they call it, so he can have a bigger audience for his show. It's just like that with this. So
yes.
Laszlo, he'll take the strategic cooking if it means getting him and Ilsa to America. Anyway, Strasser, tipped off by Renault, drives up alone. When Strasser ignores Rick's warnings and attempts to stop the plane, Rick shoots him dead. When the policemen arrive, Renault pauses and orders them to round up the usual suspects. He suggests to Rick that they join the Free French in Brazzaville. I hadn't really thought about the colonial aspect of this. Of course,
it is kind of funny.
They're in Morocco, which of course is a colony of France. They say unoccupied France.
Yeah.
But it's like, this ain't France, man. This is Morocco. And where are they going? To join the Free French in
Brazzaville.
Oh, Brazzaville. Where's that?
The Congo.
Which Congo?
The regular Congo.
The regular old Congo, yes, right next to Kinshasa. But
yes,
Kinshasa was controlled by the Belgians.
Yeah, the Belgians who managed it very well, I'm told.
Oh yeah, very well. Yeah, I think King Leopold did a great
productive
job. Yes. So again, like the Free French in another colony. Great stuff. As they walk away in the fog, Rick says, "Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Foreshadowing their gay relationship to come.
Yes.
Because of course two men can only be friends back in Hollywood in those days. I like, to be honest, I like the twist from Renault. I like it because I didn't really see it coming, and obviously he puts the Vichy wine bottle in the bin, which is symbolic. The thing is, he has been unabashedly corrupt, as Wikipedia says, and suddenly it's a heel turn right at the end. But the thing is, I was thinking, he's doing this because he'd be very embarrassed to be kind of foiled. If anybody knew the story of what Rick did to him, it'd be very embarrassing for him.
Yeah.
So that's why he's fine with, Rick getting away with murder, or not. I mean, murdering Nazis, is that really murder?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why. But no, apparently it's a patriotic thing he's doing, which again is kind of an interesting way to. And again, he's helping Rick. Rick fucking cockblocks him before. You remember?
Yes.
Yeah, he was going to get sucked off by that Bulgarian girl, or at least sucked off, and Rick fucking cockblocks him. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, clearly the guy's a kind of a whimsical, witty guy, this Renault chap.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's why he chooses to ally himself with Rick, because Rick is also quite witty, and he's like, oh, I respect you for like the banter that we have, the friendly banter. So I don't know, but it just seems.
Yeah, I feel like some people can get screwed over and they don't even care about it. It's just like, okay, whatever, cool.
Yeah, but I think in real life he wouldn't act like that for a couple of reasons.
Actually, I'm a big fan, and I think I've mentioned before that this is something they seem to be better at doing in old movies, and we seem to have lost, is like having characters be morally, objectionable or like kind of immoral in some kind of way, but not having to be villains because of that. Because I feel like, I don't know.
But he does he does turn in the end into a hero.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
exactly.
saying.
Yeah,
and is it
yeah.
that believable?
I think it is, because I feel like, I don't know, like
You just want it to be believable.
you know, maybe I feel like I like it in terms of a film development. I feel like it could happen, where like ultimately, you know, people are different. I think there are plenty of people who would be like, yeah, you know, this guy, you know, I'm a little bit corrupt and this guy interfered in my corruption, but you know, actually, when I really think about it, I can admire what he's got going on. And also, there's an element in which it could be cynical, because I think maybe he also, you could say he might realize that, you know, joining the free, maybe he, you know what, actually, maybe this all happened on the 7th of December, and he just happened to get the news earlier, so he saw that the Americans were going to be joining. So he was like, "Oh, I've got to."
Well, that's what I'm saying. It seems to me, because he's a very, you know, political guy.
Yeah.
He's corrupt. He just goes. He literally says he goes whichever way the wind blows.
Yeah,
he
so
doesn't
I think
take,
he can sense that the Nazis are going to be screwed.
Yeah, he doesn't take like a patriotic stance, but that's the implication at the end when he puts the Vichy wine in the bin. But yeah, maybe again, like he knew which way the wind was blowing if the Americans were entering the war. I would. At the time, I assumed he was siding with Rick because he knew which way the wind was blowing, because he knew he'd be very embarrassed if Rick told the story of how he was fooled. But yeah, again, that's Renault for you. Again, he's an interesting character. I liked him as a character. I just think the ending was a bit murky. Anyway, let's conclude. Michael, you go first.
Yes, this movie is it is very entertaining, and it's very kind of easy going, I guess. Like I say, you can understand everything that's going on. All of the characters' kind of different, unique situations are pretty easy to understand. There's no difficulty there. And in terms of like the emotional aspect, some of the emotions kind of work, but I think the problem is with a kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like an atonement story or kind of a character arc story, you need to have the emotions balancing out. So like I say, the moments where Rick shows himself to be not so cynical and quite sentimental are quite good moments, and they endear you to him as a character. The problem is, there's nothing there to balance them out in terms of him actually seeming particularly cynical and, you know, self-serving. And I think that's probably the biggest issue at the center of his character arc, and I think this is a film where his character arc matters quite a lot. But the plot itself still is entertaining, and it's still interesting to see his role in that. Obviously, the fact the film is kind of a classic and like the kind of quotable lines means, in a way, regardless of how good I were to say the film is, most people should probably watch it. But with that said, in terms of its overall quality, I'm going to give the film I think I'm going to give it a low 7.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe a middling 7, but I do think that the character arc thing does hold it back.
Yeah, I'm going to give this movie a 6 out of 10, Casablanca. The thing is, yes, I think the plot is well put together. You know, maybe a couple of quibbles with Renault's character motivations, and you know, a couple of other quibbles, and I do think they could do a better job with Rick's character. And yeah, the thing is, it's just like, oh yeah, it's predictable. You can tell what's going to happen. But there is some interest in what's going on, and you know, it's a fine movie. Like, it's a nice, fine movie, and I feel like 6 out of 10 is a good score to give it. You know, I can understand why this people loved it at the time. I can understand why it's a Hollywood classic. I just don't particularly like this genre of Hollywood classics. You know, I just don't particularly find them interesting, because you know they all kind of follow a very similar formula, and this one deviates a bit, I guess, with a bittersweet ending, but not that much. But yeah, it's a nice movie. Again, the fact that this is set in World War II and it came out during World War II is intriguing, and again, there's a bit of history into this fascinating place, you know, Casablanca. Which, you know, again, that would have been interesting. So yeah, I'm glad that, you know, I saw this movie. You know, it's because of course it's famous as well. All the quotes, that was interesting to see that. So yeah, it's yeah, you're right. I wouldn't mind watching it again, Michael. I wouldn't mind. So yeah, 6 out of 10. So Michael, let's do some receipts from Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yeah, okay.
I
think I would have been better off going low, because I just had to go high.
Do you know the Rotten Tomatoes score for it?
I don't right now.
So basically, I guessed 78, and you had to guess 18 off to stand a chance of winning our Rotten Tomatoes predictions for this year.
Yeah, so I went for 90.
Because I have a...
Or 96.
Because I had a 17-point lead. So again, you went for 96. Should you have gone for 60 instead, Michael? Well, the correct guess would have been 77. Okay. So it would not have mattered either way. Of course, I was just one off and you therefore were 19 off with your guess of 96. So the correct answer was 77. Yeah, slightly less than the first movie, which I thought would be the case. So you're 19 off. I was 1 off, so you got 19 added to your score, which means your final score for 2022 was 156. You guessed 156 off Rotten Tomatoes scores with your predictions on movies coming out this year, and also take away the points you got for the Oscar predictions. I got 121, Michael. So I win by 35, which was probably always going to happen considering you had to go for it on the last one, didn't you? Yeah, it would have been a lot closer, but of course you went for it. So yeah, there you go. I win this year, so I'm up 2-1 overall in the years that we've done this. But of course, it's all still to play for next year, Michael.
Absolutely.
The predictions, they never stop. Do you want to congratulate me on my victory?
Well done.
Yes.
Well done.
Remember last year it was won in suspicious circumstances. No, I mean, we were very, very close last year. Of course, it came down to the final one, literally when we basically were separated by nothing for the Matrix. So, Michael, what are we doing next time?
Next time we are starting off our kind of Oscar extravaganza. I don't know what we call it. By looking at obviously the films that were nominated for Best Picture last year, and next time we are going to be looking at Licorice Pizza by, what was his name, Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah, Paul Thomas Anderson, yeah.
Paul Thomas Anderson, I get my Andersons confused.
Yeah, so join us next time for Licorice Pizza. We've been selecting on Casablanca. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
Goodbye.